How to pattern pants from scratch the easy and fast way. Now, if you've watched the original tutorial, I get a ton of people asking questions about some parts of the video or just confusion in general. So I hope to answer all those questions and make it simpler and easy for you to understand. And with repetition, you guys should be able to pattern these pants within 10 minutes or less. Also, disclaimer, I know these patterns are for selvage denim, but you can really use this to make anything like sweatpants, shorts, or other pants. You just might have to adjust the pattern a bit more. I am not a professional pattern maker. I'm just teaching you guys what I know and what I learned from books, other tutorials, and other online sources. And there's no right or wrong way with pattern making. So have fun with it, and maybe you can use this tutorial to implement your own style of pattern making. So without further ado, let's start patterning. First, you need to have these tools, which is pattern paper. You can get this at your local arts and crafts store. You can even go to Home Depot and buy a whole roll of craft paper. So this would really help a lot if you have a French curve ruler and a see-through grid ruler. You can get these on Amazon for like less than $10. A measuring tape and pencil. All right, let's get your measurements. These are the measurements that you will need: waist, hip, crotch, waist to hip, waist to knee, and waist to ankle. Starting off with measuring your waist. Wrap the measuring tape around where you want the pants to sit at. If you want it to sit at a high rise, then you go at the waist or higher. Or if you want to go low rise, you go below the waist or just in the mid rise. So just adjust to where you want it to sit at. And that will be where your waist measurement will be. And keep that in mind too. For your hip measurement, you're going to measure the circumference around the roundest part of your bum. For your crotch depth, you're going to take a seat and sit straight up. And wherever you measured your waist measurement, you're going to start right there and go all the way down to the bottom of the seat. And that will be your crotch measurement. And from here, waist to hip, waist to knee, waist to ankle is pretty self-explanatory. So where you measured your hip, you'll go down to waist to hip measurement, waist to knee measurement, and waist to ankle. And that should be all your measurements ready to go. Okay, so now that you have your measurements, we need to add ease to the hip and waist measurement, depending on what kind of fit you want for your pants, whether it's baggy, slim, straight. We're going to ask AI how much ease we should add to both measurements. This is the prompt that I have. For this example, I'll just say baggy. I'm making a pair of baggy pants. My waist measurement is, and my hip measurement is. How much ease should I add to both measurements? The beautiful thing about AI is that it can even help you with sewing. So in this case, it's telling me to add about 1 to 2 inches for ease in the waist. For a baggier look, I would need to go about 6 to 8 inches for my hip measurements. So go ahead and add the extra inches for ease to the waist and hip measurement. Also for your crotch measurement, I want you to add an extra inch to 1.5 inches to add ease to the drop crotch area. Okay, let's get started. So we're gonna go ahead and roll out our paper. For my pattern paper specifically, I have to create borders to make sure that I'm actually patterning straight. Make sure you set a straight border for your guidelines. At the very top, you're gonna draw a straight line, and this will be your waistline. You're gonna take the measurements that you took earlier, which is your waist to hip, waist to knee, waist to ankle, and your crotch, and you're going to go from your waistline all the way to wherever your measurements land. For example, for my crotch measurement, it is 9.5 inches, so I'm gonna go 9.5 inches from my waistline down. And then you go ahead and carry that on to every other measurement that you have. Once you've marked every single measurement, go ahead and draw a line to the other side, and we're going to be using that for each guideline. Okay, so let's start at the waist. Take your waist and hip measurement, divide them both by 4. We're going to use this new hip measurement and mark this right here. So take what you got, so mine is 10. So I'm going to go 10 inches from the border inwards. Once you've created a point, I want you to draw a line down to the crotch line. Now let's zoom into the center point right here that we've created earlier. I want you to go 3/4 of an inch in and 3/4 of an inch down and create a point from there. 3/4 of an inch inwards, 3/4 of an inch down, just like that. Now this is where our new waist measurement comes in. So mine is 8.5. From this point that we created, I'm going to take my new waist measurement, which is 8.5, and use this as a starting point. And I'm going to draw a line that measures out to 8.5 inches that reaches the waistline. This line will be your waist measurement divided by 4. You connect that point we made inwards and draw it up to the waistline, and that should be your waist. Okay, so from hip to waistline, I'm going to go about 2.5 inches up and just make a point. From this point to our waist point that we made earlier, I'm just going to draw a curve downward. And this is already forming the outside of our front panel. And since we're making selvage pants, this will be straight along the whole way, so we don't have to do much on this side, so it's pretty easy. Next, we're going to draw the curve of the front panel. Take your new hip measurement, which mine is 10, and then you're going to divide it by 4 once again. Once you get your value, add another ½ inch down, so mine comes out to 3. And we're going to be using this new value. At the crotch point where the hip line intersects with it, we are going to create a point with that new value that we got, so mine is 3. So I'm going to go 3 inches out, and this is my new point right here. I'm going to take my French curve, connect these 2 points together, and try to make the top half portion a little bit straighter, and then curve it out. That way the zipper fly comes out a lot crispier. And that is the front curve right there. So we pretty much got the top half portion of the front panel already done. The rest should be easy. Go down to your ankle measurement. Depending on how wide you want your leg opening to be, basically create a point at that opening. So let's say if you want a 12-inch leg opening, I'm just going to draw a 12-inch point, and then I'm going to draw another 12-inch point at the knee line. Okay, and then I'm going to connect these 2 points. And now we connect the knee point to the crotch point. I like to curve the top half portion and then straighten it out. And that should be good. This is your front pattern all ready to go. We just need to add 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and 2 inches of seam allowance for the hem. 2 inches of seam allowance for the hem, 5/8 of an inch seam allowance all around the whole panel, including the top. And now you're just gonna cut this out and put it to the side. Okay, for the back side, I want you to redraw all the guidelines. You're also going to draw the intersecting hip line all the way down to the crotch, just like the front side. Okay, just like that. And I also want you to use that same crotch point that you got from the front, which mine was 3 inches. So just mark a point right there. From the top intersecting point right here, you're going to go 1.25 inches inwards and then 1 inch up. Again, that's 1.25 inches inwards and 1 inch up, and then you're going to create a point. Going back to our waist measurement divided by 4, we're going to take this value and start at this point and connect it all the way down to this waistline. Since my waist measurement is 8.5, I'm going to draw an 8.5 inch line until it intersects with this waist guideline. Again, same thing like the front side, we're gonna go 2.5 inches from the hip guideline, create a point, and then we're going to curve it down. Just like that. All right, so from this crotch point that we made earlier, you're going to go 2 inches out again from this point, and then ½ an inch down. And this will be your new crotch point for your back panel. Again, you're going to go 2 inches outwards and then ½ an inch down, and this will be your new point. Now you're going to connect these 2 new points similar to the front side, and then you're just gonna curve it out. And just like that, you have the back curve. Now everything else gets pretty repetitive. You're just going to draw out your leg opening that you want. So I want a 12-inch leg opening, and then you're just gonna follow this up to the knee point. And then you're going to connect these 2, and then you're going to connect these 2 points, and then you're going to connect the knee point to the new crotch point, curving out the top half, and then straightening out to the end, and then straightening out to the knee point, just like that. All right, and then I'm also going to use a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance all around again. Okay, and then this is what it should look like, seam allowance all around the backside. And then you're just going to cut this out, and then now we will start patterning the yoke, pockets, etc. Okay, we're going to start off by patterning the back yoke. First, I'm going to label my panel as back panel so you guys don't get confused. What you're going to do is you're going to lay out your pattern on top of a piece of paper, and then you're just going to trace the outline of like the top half, I guess. Okay. I have traced the outline of the back panel, so I'm gonna call this the yoke. Okay, when patterning your yoke, it depends on how wide or skinny you want your yoke to be. I'm just going to do like a standard yoke. So go ahead and lay your back panel over the yoke tracing again. And I'm going to go about 4.5 inches down on the curve. And I'm also going to mark the traced side too, so I know where it's at. And then I'm probably gonna do like 3 inches on the other side. And then what you're going to do is connect these 2 points. And connect the points on the yoke as well. Okay, just like that. Okay, so this will be our yoke, and we are going to give it seam allowance. So you're just gonna do 1/2 inch below this original line that we created. I'm just going to cross this out because we don't need this one no more. And now this is going to be cut out, and this will be used as our yoke now. There you have it. Okay, moving over to our back panel. On this line that we created, we are going to go 1 inch up this time. This will account for the flat felled seam folds. So just go 1 inch above this line, and then you're going to cut this part out. All right, and we will no longer need this part, so you could just toss it out. And now we have our yoke and our back panel. Okay, to pattern a back pocket, you're simply going to measure the width and the length down here. So this one specifically is 6.5 by 6.5. So let's pattern this out. Okay, so I'm going to draw out a 6.5 inch by 6.5 inch square. Okay, 6.5 inch by 6.5 inch. Okay, on the bottom side, I'm going to go 1/2 inch up and 1/2 inch in on both borders. And then I'm also going to create a point at the halfway point. And then I'm going to start at the top corners and connect these dots. Okay, now I have the pocket outline. Let's give it seam allowance. At the top, we're going to give a full inch of seam allowance. And then everything else will be at 3/8 to 1/2 inch of seam allowance. I like to use 3/8 of an inch. And there it is. This is your back pocket pattern. Go ahead and cut this out and you should be good. Okay, so now we're going to pattern the front pocket. Similar to the back side, go ahead and put a piece of paper underneath the panel. We're gonna trace the outline up until like the hip area to the other side of the border. Okay, and we're going to use this. For this specific example, I'm just going to do a standard scoop pocket. So I'm going to go from the border, I'm going to go about 5 inches out, create that point, and do it on the outline of the pocket behind the panel. And then I'm going to go about 3.5 inches down, also getting the traced outline. And then I'm just going to curve these 2 points. And disclaimer, this can be adjusted to whatever you like. If you want your pockets to be smaller or bigger, you can adjust that to your own liking. I'm going to draw a 1/2 inch seam allowance along the curve of this pocket going outwards. Okay, and this will be the seam allowance. Okay, this will be the seam allowance for the front pocket, and we'll just put this to the side. Okay, I'm actually going to create another outline of the front panel, and I'm going to go all the way down to like around the crotch or even below that. And this one will serve as the pocket bag. Okay, where you marked your pocket, go ahead and mark it on the pocket bag as well. Not the seam allowance, the actual pocket. And just like that, we're set up for the pocket bag. On the top side, just go about 1 inch or 1.5 inches out and create a point. Depending on how deep you want your pockets, that's up to you. I'm just going to do simply 10 inches. So I'm gonna go 10 inches down from here and basically connect these 2 points. You can customize this pocket bag to your own liking. You can make it curved or you can square it off. I'm just going to square it off. And this will serve as our pocket bag now, and you could just go ahead and cut this out. Okay, going back to the other traced outline, this will be the denim lining to cover the pocket bag. And then we're going to use these 2 points as a guideline. Go about 1/2 inch or 3/4 out from this top line. Go about 1.25 inches down from this point, and then basically make a huge curve just like that. And this will be your denim lining. And then go ahead and cut this out and you should be good. Okay, we're going to do the front zipper fly. So go ahead and trace the curve out. Just like that. Using this curve, I like to gauge with the zipper that I'm going to use and place it right where this curve is. I like to go about 1/2 inch underneath the zipper stopper. Go about 2 inches to 2.5 inches out. I created this point, and I'm just going to curve it out now. And this will be your fly. Go ahead and cut this out, and we'll move over to the fly shield now. I probably patterned the fly shield the most weirdest way, so you don't have to follow this part if you don't want to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace the outline of the fly shield, just like that. And then I'm going to flip it around and then repeat that again. So it creates this shield looking pattern now. And then I'm going to draw about 1/2 inch of seam allowance along this whole shield, except for the top. Hypothetically, if this was 1/2 inch of seam allowance, I'm going to cut this out and that should be your fly shield. Moving back to the front panel, we are good to cut this pocket out. And then you should be left with the pocket curve and the seam allowance for the front panel. Okay, after cutting this part out of the front panel, you're going to take this, bring your pocket bag, place it right on top of the pocket bag, and just trace the outline of this. Just like that. Keep this here for now. To note for the pocket bag, this side will be cut on fold. And if you don't know what this means, I'll show you real quick. So for the pocket bag, you're going to grab your fabric, fold it. With the folded edge right here, you're going to place the pocket bag where it says cut on fold. I'm going to mark this out. And this will be cut on the fold, so check this out. And let me cut this real quick. And once you flip it open, this will be your whole pocket bag itself. Going back to the traced edge from this on how much to cut off on one side of the pocket bag. You only cut one side for the pocket bag with this. Trace it out. And this will be your pocket bag for one side, and then you have to do it for the other side. And so that'll just be flipped like that. That is your pocket bag. Last and final step is the waistband and belt loop. I like to pattern those pieces at the end when you're sewing. So when you watch the tutorial of how to sew your first pair of pants, I'll show you how to pattern the waistband using the circumference of the garment that you're almost done with. So that being said, this concludes the full tutorial of how to pattern pants easily and simply. I hope that I helped you guys out a lot, and I would love to see all the pieces you guys make with it. And if you still have questions, please join our Discord where we have tons of people who like to sew, who are new into sewing, or who are really good at it. We can help you guys out a lot, including myself. I'm pretty active on it. Or just chat about fashion, gaming, or even OK Stan, where we have exclusive giveaways and early access. Thank you so much for watching this whole tutorial, and I hope I helped you guys out a lot. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comment. Thanks for watching.